talk about service. One question that I get quite often is, what does service look like for a Fisker? Because in my area, nobody knows what a Fisker is, so it's a natural question. What does service look like? And traditionally, we're all used to just doing what we do with Toyota, Ford, General Motors, Honda, you name them. We try to fit something into our schedule. We call the service department. We're working around other people's schedules. We're also working around the time of day that they're open. And I've always just found it to be a nightmare to try to schedule service for a car. We drive our car there, we drop it off, we leave it for maybe days or weeks, depending on what the issue is or how fast the service is, or we sit in, the little cubby hole, the little waiting area, and we play on our phones for, several hours until they come out and, give us the total of the bill and say, hey, we got you fixed up. You can go, or we can't fix this today, and, you're basically screwed and wasted all of your time. With Fisker, though, they come out to you, which is a real game changer in the grand scheme of things. My tech came out at he got at my house at roughly 5 o'clock. And he come out, he introduced himself, got right to the point, opened the service bay area of the hood, got right to it, went to work, we talked, and by the time he was done, it was roughly about 8 o'clock that night. So roughly 3 hours, but we did have to drive out and get signal, we did have to do an update, and he was just so nice and so cordial. And imagine trying to get that type of service from a traditional car dealership. So some of you might want to know exactly what was going on with my car, so I'm going to walk you through that. So what were my issues? My issue revolved around the car losing cell signal, and I'm not exactly sure what caused that. First, I was prompted to update my app. It said that version of the app was no longer applicable, and I needed to update it. So of course, that's what I did. And also, at about the same time, roughly, I received an email from Fisker saying that I could update the car to the newest version of software. And there's been 2 full versions of the software since my original software. The problem, though, was Fisker was expecting everyone to have cell signal at home, and I do not. So they were scheduling the updates between 6:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. And basically you just needed to have your car at home during that time, and the update would happen automatically. Problem was that wasn't really an option for me. So I called Fisker and I told them what my situation was, and the lady said, oh, that's no problem, just drive out and get signal and you can update it yourself. So I thought that's what I could do. And from there, I never could. It was just never available. So then I started the process of contacting Fisker, scheduling a tech to come out, and I went through that process and I got the tech to come out. So once my car lost cell signal, what issues did that actually cause? First and foremost, I couldn't update the car. And that was my single biggest concern, that, there was no possible way for me to ever update my car since it had lost cell signal. And Fisker's first attempt was to do what they called a T-box reset. Now, they said that they could do that remotely, and that usually works. But in my situation, the remote T-box reset just never happened. So it was determined that, a tech would have to come out. So my issues revolved around not being able to update the car. Also, Hollywood mode. When you went to Hollywood mode, of course, if the car had no cell signal, you couldn't watch any videos, go to YouTube or Amazon Prime or anything like that. And oddly enough, limo mode actually stopped working, and I don't know what the connection there ever really was. That's just something that the tech reset, and it worked perfectly fine after that. Another thing while the tech was here was I asked him, I knew that some battery cables had been connected wrong. Now, that requires a small explanation. When these Oceans are shipped, the battery's disconnected while, it's coming across the ocean to America. And then they get reconnected once they get over here. And sometimes those reconnections were not in the right position. And I told the tech, I said, hey, got a question for you. Sometimes when my Fisker Ocean is fully charged and it's sitting there, it's done charging. It will click on and start charging for a very short period of time, click right back off, and then repeat that cycle several times over the course of an hour. And he said, oh, I bet your battery's hooked up wrong. So he looked at the connection, and it was indeed turned in the wrong direction. So since he has adjusted my battery cable, I have never once seen that happen, where it cycles on and off very rapidly. Now, when I'm saying rapidly, I'm talking like the car is charged, sitting there for 5 minutes, all of a sudden you hear a click, and the car starts charging. Very short period of time after that, I never really timed it, but probably another minute or two, click, it would stop charging. And then it would go through that cycle sometimes several times over the course of an hour. And so he adjusted that, and that fixed it. And I had another question for the tech. I said, hey man, I've never seen my Ocean charge above 6.3 kilowatts of power. And he said, I haven't either. And I said, well, Fisker states, that it can charge at 7.5 kilowatts. That's the specs that I've seen. And he really didn't know. He didn't have an explanation for that. We both just kind of maybe assumed that for right now, Fisker's just throttling that back. Or maybe the original specs were wrong and it maxes out at 6.3. We really just didn't know. Now, I did ask the tech about future updates, and the one that I really want is adaptive cruise. And I'm also looking forward to the lights being able to dim automatically on their own. And he didn't know. He didn't know when either of those would be available. He speculated that maybe that's coming in the February update, but he hadn't been told what's going to be in that just yet. So what were my overall experiences with service coming to me? I loved it. Very different than trying to schedule with a traditional car manufacturer, Ford, GM, you name them, and going to the dealership. Service came to my house, and I absolutely love that. I think that's a game changer. Service could have come to me at work, but I was off work the day that the tech was coming, so that worked out really well for me. And my experience was just super positive. The rep, or the tech, as I should probably say, was just super friendly, just such a nice guy, just such a pleasure to meet. He went over everything that I asked him very professionally. And I think if Fisker can, continue that same level of professionalship and with the same level of professional techs, get techs out in a timely manner when issues do crop up, I think that's an absolute game changer. And I think once people get used to that, there's no going back. I think the legacy players are really going to struggle with this type of service. It's just that good. So if you are considering an Ocean for yourself, should you be worried about getting remote service to come to you? No, as a matter of fact, I think you should look forward to it. You basically have two choices. You have the traditional auto dealerships where, we've all dealt with that. Or you can look to the newer companies like Fisker, where they're going to send out a tech to you on your time. You're not trying to schedule around other people's times. You're not trying to fit in to a schedule that doesn't work for you because, most of us work for a living and you don't want to take off work to get your car worked on. So it really is a pain for a working person to schedule a car visit at a traditional dealership. So I think the new version of this, where they're sending remote techs out to fix issues, I just think it's a game changer. And if you're not familiar with electric cars for the most part, now any hardware piece can fail, but for the most part, electric vehicles are computers on wheels, They're basically an iPhone on wheels. So usually when something does go wrong, usually, generally speaking, it's almost always software. So a lot of times that software can be reset by yourself, putting the car into a deep sleep, simply charging cycles, things like that. Or, it can be reset remotely from Fisker. And, if that doesn't work, of course, you can always have done what I had done and get a tech sent out to you. And I just think that's such a blessing, such a fantastic way to do service against the traditional dealerships. So if you have any questions or comments, just let me know. I'm always happy to listen to other people and get ideas from other people. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helps.